Good morning, Wabash. Today, speaking at Pioneer Chapel is Matthew Kip Chase with his talk, Leading in the Age of Civility. Kip is a graduate of the class of 2003. He began his career with Eli Lilly and Company 2 weeks after graduation from Wabash and has subsequently had a series of experiences across sales, marketing, and human resources. He lived in Shanghai, China for 3 years, having served as the HR director for Lilly Research Laboratories, and currently is the global HR leader for Lilly Diabetes. Along the way, Kip earned an MBA from Indiana University and a Master of Global Management from Thunderbird. Additionally, Kip invests a great deal of time in the community. He's on the board of directors for Conner Prairie and was a founding member of the not-for-profit Random Acts of Flowers in Indianapolis, and is also the senior HR executive on the Senior HR Executives Council for the Conference Board. Finally, Kip is currently the Vice President of the National Association of Wabash Men Board of Directors and will start his term as President of the Board in May of 2021. Kip, his wife Nicole, and their 3 sons, Jack, Andy, and Will, all live in Indianapolis.
I've got to start just by saying thanks. You got me out of the house for the first time in 7 months, and so certainly am grateful for that. Thank you for the introduction. Wabash, good morning. It's such an honor to be here with you, and really look forward to the next 20 minutes, hopefully spending time on a topic that is relevant to most of you. And in the meantime, happy Thanksgiving. I know that that's just around the corner for us, and is really remarkable the way that you all have led through just a unique semester here at the college, and certainly one for the history books. I don't stand before you disconnected from the year we've all lived through. To put it mildly, I know that each one of you and your families, your loved ones, and even our beloved institution here has had to navigate uncharted waters of 2020. We've all seen and experienced lockdowns, job losses, canceled commitments. You know, I know that so many people here on campus, and those of you here, whether you played in a sport or you've been a part of a club, you've seen those things canceled and had to live through them. We've also witnessed racial injustice, riots, brutality, cancel culture, and lastly, political polarization has really gripped us in one way or the other, and it's induced emotional reactions that I know we've all faced. Social media platforms have successfully paved the way for sharing personal expressions of love and joy and perceived happiness. But during these tumultuous and isolated times in our lives, I think they also have had, at times, amplified anger and frustration, resentment, and unfortunately, hatred at times. In fact, these platforms we'll spend some time talking about today are designed to solicit these kind of emotive responses that I know we're all facing. A 2018 Facebook report confirms that algorithms promote content that sparks outrage, hate, and amplifies biases. So a question as we start today, and the conversation that we're going to have is, how have you been affected? And how are you responding to all this? If any of you are like me and my family and friends, I can't look at you and say that I'm immune to it. I go through those same type of emotional responses as well. But a question I would have is, do you desire civil discourse? And do you desire healing? I think we'd start then by asking this question is, what is civility? And the Institute for Civility in Government states, civility is claiming and caring for one's identity, needs, and beliefs without degrading someone else's in the process. So an opportunity for each of us is to say, are we ready to lead our generation and future generations back to civility? So today I want to start with a personal story to frame up the reality of our current discourse and the opportunity before us. And it starts with 12-year-old conversations. I think the majority of us have embraced New Age communications, particularly each of you sitting here today. That is that within 140 characters or less, we all communicate with family, friends, each other, also work colleagues, and society at large. Until recently, just to be very transparent and clear, I believe that that life via these channels was getting better. It was simple, it was productive, it was the future. After all, even in a pandemic, you could make sure that you had groceries or you could meet your own personal needs by a few clicks of a button or the touch of an app. Yet just this last week, I was reminded that our lives need much more nourishment than that. My wife and I are the parents of 3 boys. Our oldest, our son, his name's Jack, and he's in 7th grade. And he's to the point that he's old enough to understand and to engage in political discourse and adult conversations. On Wednesday night last week, probably like each of you here, we were glued to the television to really understand and see what the latest was happening with the election results. I noticed that Jack kept glancing down at his iPad and scrolling through a text chain that included about a dozen of his classmates. He started to look troubled and sad. As a parent, I grew worried, and you can sense it. I'm sure that most of you can even sense it when one of your friends or loved ones start to get that body language or facial expression of some deep concern. So I asked him, Jack, is there anything you want to talk about? And what followed in that moment is what prompted my talk here today and my call and support for each of us on civility and our ability to take a stand. The chat goes like this: you're a racist, you're a socialist, you're supporting evil. Is the rumor true that you support this candidate? You should be ashamed of yourself. Answer the bleeping question. These are just a few of the fiery comments made by a group of 12-year-olds on a text chain that was designed to help each other talk about homework. He was heartbroken. He wasn't sure how to respond, and he knew that his classmates felt the same. What followed was a heart-to-heart, and hopefully relevant to each of us here, a coming-of-age moment and conversation that I got to have with my son about civility, relationships, the importance of holding and understanding multiple points of view, even when they conflict with each other. My hope is that a few of these points are going to be relevant to each of you today. And let's start with the first: connect with people. To navigate just the complexities that we all face, you have to be able to connect with people. It's timeless. Not just connecting with people in 140 characters or less, likes or special comments. I'm talking about a deeper, more trusted, and more emotional level. Author and motivational speaker Simon Sinek remarked recently, being a trusted leader is hard. It's full of paradoxes. You all have to face them. But if the people you interact with, your family, your friends, if they genuinely believe that you care about them, and they genuinely believe that you have their back, they will support and follow you wherever you go. I want to pause on this for a minute because I fear in 2020, some of it driven by living in a pandemic and some of it by societal polarization, we may be losing the ability to genuinely and authentically connect with each other. Let's think about our own relationships for a minute. Are you more likely to trust a friend, a classmate, or a family member if you've personally shared what weighs on your heart and they've done the same? Is it stronger than if your relationship is based upon text message and likes and comments? The Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, claims a 5,000-person study found that higher social media use correlated with self-reported declines in mental and physical health. Balance that with a recent article titled 5 Ways to Build Meaningful Relationship, which includes the following findings. 1, we have to physically meet with people. We have to physically see them. 2, you have to be able to discuss important things that matter to you and to them. 3, it's important that you express vulnerability by asking questions and sharing when you're unsure, when you want to seek to understand, or when you need more information. 4, you have to demonstrate integrity. Simply put, that your words and actions meet. And 5, you have to be there for each other. And sometimes that can be it can be achieved simply by asking, how can I help? How will you build and support meaningful relationships at a time when tensions are so high and at a time when we're facing the challenges such as a pandemic? A question that I would have is, how often do you choose to do it in 140 characters or less without regard for how your words are perceived or received? Or will you do as I've asked my son and take the time to build and protect trusted relationships? And it's important to share. And one thing I highlighted with him, these relationships are not void of dissenting opinions. Rather, they're ones that stand up against trials, and they use enlightening and eliminate disparaging dialogue. During the text exchange, it kept going. And one of the things I witnessed between Jack and his classmates was I realized that none of them were asking the clarifying question, what do you believe? Or share more about why you feel this way. None of them had paused to seek to understand how each one of their classmates was doing in this moment. A mentor of mine gave me great coaching on continuous improvement early in my career. If I'm anything like you, you have these moments where you want to do well. You never wake up, every day for school to say, hey, I want to be a mediocre student. You want to be a good student. You want to be a good employee, a good teammate, a good leader. That's certainly something that calls to me. And I was excited. We had this unique opportunity to address a big, complex problem at work. I wanted to do it fast. I wanted to do it within a couple of days and set a standard for what good looks like. So I walked into his office, and I shared, I've got the solution. Let's sit down and talk about it. Very quickly, I realized he was far wiser than I. He pointed out flaws in my approach and shared coaching with me that I hold dear to this day. He said, Kip, you live in a world where your response is don't just stand there, do something. But what I need you to do is focus on don't just do something, stand there. To this day, this coaching was so elegant and pure and thoughtful to me that I refer to it often in my personal and professional life, particularly when the world around us wants everything immediate, just a few clicks away. The societal pressure to respond immediately, the thought and the belief that how quickly you respond is currency. So my call, and one of the things I would share with you is, don't just do something, stand there. Professor Edward Wilson commented on the reality we face in a world where technology outpaces our own thinking and states, if we are honest and smart, the real problem of humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. Civility requires caution and being thoughtful for how we leverage and engage in a world where text messages, likes, and comments are actually defined as relationships. I started to share this point with my son, and now with all of you. I'm aiming to guide him so that he understands it's okay to pause and take a breath. And as my mentor would say, don't just do something, stand there. My hope is that by taking this approach, it'll help you be more thoughtful in not only our responses, but also the impact that we have on those around us. because the world around us continues to grow more and more complex. My final point that I would share with you is one that comes from my former CEO and leader of my company, Eli Lilly. His name is John Lecklider. And he recently shared his thoughts and the needs of leaders in society today. He commented that leaders and citizens that exude and live with courage, optimism, and generosity are the ones that are making the greatest difference. The word generous has stuck out to me. I was reminded of a quote that leaders don't make leaders, followers do. We should all reflect and ask ourselves, are we worth following? Do we open ourselves up to a broad group of friends, a broad group of colleagues, and a broad group of perspectives? One way to do that is to get back to civility is to do so by being generous and giving credit to others. When I was a student here, one of the experiences that we all had in common was to give back to the community. You know, we had small groups. We went around Crawfordsville. We helped people build homes. We helped beautify the city. We took on big tasks that had just been laid by the side that the city needed help with. I think that most of the college continues to do that today, but it continues to be mindful of, it's just a small example of, hey, that's a way to live and to be generous. A recent story in the Huffington Post suggested that year after year, more and more studies are highlighting the benefits of generosity, not only on our physical health, but our mental health. Not only does generosity reduce stress, support one's physical health, it enhances your sense of purpose, and it naturally fights depression, and finally, it's shown to increase one's lifespan. Yet when I use the word generous, it's important for me to clarify what I don't mean. I don't mean generosity that starts with your dollars and your treasure. As noted by the psychology department at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, it begins with the emotion of gratitude that uniquely functions to build high-quality relationships between people. My friend and current president of our National Association of Wabash Men, Mark Nichols, spoke earlier this year at the freshman chapel ceremony, ringing in ceremony. Here are a few of his remarks. No one gets to this place or out of it without a lot of help. We, like your family and friends back home, your former teachers and coaches who push you to get to this level, and those who want to see you become what you're capable of doing, have helped. Yes, sometimes this may not come easily. Other times it may come with real struggle. I sense that in 2020, we've all likely dealt with the word struggle far more than we have the easy approach that Mark was talking about. When I read Mark's words, I like to replace his word help with generosity. We are all the recipients of someone's wisdom and guidance, someone's love and support. And if we are to pivot to a more civil society, being generous must be the foundation of our behaviors and our mindset and our decisions. In short, and I know that this rings true for all of you, we all certainly stand on the shoulders of others, and oftentimes they are giants. As I begin to close, I will come back to this question. Can 12-year-olds lead us back to civility? My answer is simple. Not unless we teach them. The truth is, there's no hiding from this complex and challenging world. We have to be prepared, and we have to help prepare the next generation. They will continue to look at their parents and their role models, including each of you here, to establish and in some cases correct their course. We must collectively encourage them to establish meaningful relationships, to digest multiple points of view, and to be more thoughtful before engaging and activating our emotions. We must be generous with our teachings, and we must extend patience and grace to those reluctant, because a civil society is an accepting one, a non-discriminating society, and that is certainly worth all of our efforts. And then I'll conclude with just a couple of final comments and say that each of you have been trailblazers here this semester. You have a great deal to be proud of. As we've seen in the news, there's been so many businesses and institutions that have not been able to follow the guidelines to complete a semester or to complete to a task, and you certainly have done that. I salute you and I say thank you for the leadership and the example that you've shown. I wish you all the very best as you wrap up your semester, and happy Thanksgiving. Thank you very, very much.